Well, you may have heard, or maybe you didn't. Yeah, the peepers. They've been talking about corn here of late, the last few weeks or so. And if you didn't, and you want to learn about all things rice, because they're still on it, I did an in-depth, deep dive all about rice. But they still swear the rice crop here in the U.S. is looking kind of bad. But, as I showed you, it wasn't quite so. And the same may be the case with the corn that we grow. You're looking right here. It's looking rather dry. And of course, you might think, well, what's all that about? Well, as you know, we've been in a drought. Some say, the climate crisis group, they want to tell you it's a 22-year-old mega drought. But then the farmers that I look at, they're saying 3 to 4 years. Who's to know? But yeah, it's looking pretty bad. And will we have more corn? And what type of corn is this? Is this the stuff we eat? Or what our chickens, our goats, our cattle, and pigs consume? Let's take a look at it right now, if you want to and don't mind. So where we're going to go to on our first stop, of course, is the USDA, Economic Research Service. U.S. Department of Agriculture, that is. And they tell us all the things about all our crops all over our country. Yeah, when it serves our purposes, it's all good. When it don't, it's all bad. Can't trust the government until we want you to. That's just the way it is. But right here it says, feed grains sector at a glance. The major feed grains are corn, sorghum, barley, and oats. Corn is primary U.S. feed grain. Yeah, it's in everything from deer food, cattle food, pork food, goat food, chicken, you name it. It's in there. And accounting for more than 95% of the total feed grain production and use. The United States is the largest producer, consumer, and exporter of corn in the world. On average, U.S. farmers plant 90 million acres of corn each year, with the majority of the crop grown in the heartland region. Most of the crop is used domestically as the main energy ingredient in livestock feed and, if you didn't know, for fuel, ethanol production. We'll talk about that more as we go along. Corn is also processed into a multitude of food and industrial products, including starch, sweeteners, high fructose corn syrup, which is bad, but apparently it's good, and beverage and industrial alcohols. U.S. corn exports are on the rise and account for an average of 15% of the country's total use. And you can see right here, U.S. feed grain production. And they'll show you. The blue is in oats, the orange is in barley, the green is sorghum, and, of course, the yellow is in corn. And if you look real close, you can see the 2022 crop of corn is being estimated, now it's got to be estimated because it's not in the bin, is right here. And it's slightly below the year of 2020 and just above the year 2019. Did we run out of corn then? Y'all remind me. Did our animals starve? Did the prices skyrocket? Well, I'm thinking not, but that's just me and my memory. But you can see it was below 2017, 2016, 2015, and about the same as 2013. Here again, did any of us have trouble getting feed for our animals? Did I miss something along the way? You see my point. And here's another thing. Corn is grown in most U.S. states, but production is concentrated, like I told you, in the heartland region. From the Great Plains through Ohio, Iowa, and Illinois, the top corn-producing states typically account for 1/3 of the U.S. crop. And then it goes in to tell you how many million of acres that the federal government, provisions in the Federal Agricultural Improvement and Reform Act of 1996 that permits farmers to make their own crop planting decision, well, sort of, kinda, based on the most profitable crop for a given year. Corn acreage in the United States has increased from a government-mandated low of 60.2 million planted acres in 1983 to close to exceeding 90 million since 2018. Much of the growth in area and production is a result of expanding ethanol production. Yep, making that alcohol, not for us to drink and make us happy, but to put in our cars and trucks. Yeah, and it accounts for nearly 45% total corn use. Yeah, nearly half. While the number of feed grain farms, those that produce corn, sorghum, barley, and or oats in the United States, has declined in recent years. Yeah, well, all farming has. I did a video about that back in 2019. And moreover, the number of large corn farms of more than 500 acres has increased over time. See, that gets back corporate farms, big pharma, bad. Big farms, bad. Like big pharma. Yep, we got to point the finger and blame somebody. Whereas smaller farms, 500 acres or less, has fallen. This is one thing I've learned in following many of the farming YouTube channels here, which there are literally hundreds, thousands of them. Yeah, you can go over there and see the real dope about farming. They don't tell no lies. They don't do no clickbait. Well, occasionally they do, like, see what happened. We got stuck, and it's the four-wheeler. Got stuck in the mud in a cornfield. You know how that clickbait goes. And they go down here and they show us, here in this little chart, U.S. corn area and yield. And you can see it's consistently risen since the 1980s, up until where it's pretty much plateaued since, about 2012 to 2021. But what we have here is the yield. And you can see that is significantly increased from, that Great Depression era, when it got all dry and that other thing happened that most people don't even talk about during the Great Depression. Yeah, the Dust Bowl. That was a major drought, possibly caused by climate change. Yeah, we didn't have that many cars and trucks and airplanes back then. Imagine that. Well, you can see here how corn production has continued to rise. And then we have a chart here, production, billions of bushels. You can see that same curve rising to the sky. But let's look at this one right here, price. When price goes high, it's almost a harbinger of demand. Increased demand and slack of supply means higher prices. We all know that. But you can see right here, this peak, which is higher than now, this was in 2012. Imagine that. And you might wonder, if you look on up here, you'll see we had a slack year on corn. Our harvest was poor, based on population and use. Because, you could say these were poor. But we've grown a little bit, folks. So take that into consideration. So the harvest was poor that year, and the price went through the roof. But let's just say, let's go back in time to 2012. Was there a feed shortage? Were they killing cows, pigs, chickens? Were you not being enabled to pick up any dog food and cat food? Because, hey, this corn's in there too. Just read the label. On your dry, dog food, cat food, goat food, what have you. Corn's pretty much in all of it. We didn't run out. We didn't slaughter animals by the millions. We didn't have a crisis. And people didn't starve and die within the borders of the U.S. But the price went high. Think about that. That right here This little graph shows you the U.S. domestic corn use. And you can see the blue. That's feed and residual use. And that's for our animals that we care for because we love them. And let's all admit it, because many we eat. The orange is for alcohol, for fuel use. Yep, that's ethanol. And you can see that's pretty much 40 to 45% of the total that's produced. And this little area up here in the gray is for other food, seed, and industrial use. And that goes for everything from, well, primarily, it goes for high fructose corn syrup, which if you're shopping in the center aisles and in the freezer case, and you're reading the ingredients, like you should, you'll find that high fructose corn syrup in a lot of processed foods. Be honest. Take a look. See what you got. And see what you're putting in your mouth. This little tiny part, less than 10%, is what we consume. Of course, you might say, well, this other 40 to 45 is what our animals consume, that we also consume. And you would be true. Like it says down here, wet millers process corn into high fructose corn syrup, glucose, dextrose, starch. Yeah, you know when we used to starch our shirts and our pants, especially if you were in the military, I might add. Maybe if you were police and firemen too. It's made into corn oil, beverage alcohol, industrial alcohol, and fuel ethanol. Dry millers process corn into flakes for cereal, corn flour, corn grits, cornmeal, and brewer's grits for beer production. Heaven forbid beer ever run out. Can you imagine Friday and Saturday nights, you know, on the down low, on the darker side of town, with no beer? Come on. It's going to get real. But that's what's up with corn. But let's take a look, now that we know where corn is grown, primarily, and how much of it is used where. What's the situation with corn in the U.S., just in case you care? Now here we are at the USDA. Yeah, I know, it's the federal government. We only want to believe them when it suits our purposes. Yeah, I've seen that on social media. And when they don't, yep, federal government bad. Yeah, well, who else are you going to trust? You're going to trust a person, boots on the ground, that pulled his car over beside the road, went out and looked at an ear of corn? Come on, guys. Anyway, this is what they have to say, and this is what started the panic parade. You ain't going to have no corn, which means you need to be stocking it up. But what do they have to say about the corn? Corn production for grain is forecast at 13.9 billion bushels. That's a whole pile of corn, in my way of thinking. But is that really good, or is that really bad? And it's down 3% from the previous forecast. And here was the kicker, down 8% from 2021. Whoa, when they found that 8% out, they just jumped on it. Oh, I'm telling you, all the way from Alaska to Florida too. It just came up in all kinds of YouTube channels here for you. Yeah. Based on conditions as of September the 1st, yields are expected to average 172 bushels per harvested acre. That's down 2.9 bushels from the previous forecast and down 4.5 bushels from last year. Now, we'll talk about last year a little bit in the video as we progress. Acreage updates were made in several states based on a thorough review of all available data. You know, there's all kinds of farms that send the USDA info and everything. And you know, those people over at Zero Hedge may not know. The total planted area at 88.6 million acres is down 1% from the previous estimate and down 5% from the previous year. Areas harvested for grain is forecasted at 80.8 million acres, down 1% from the previous forecast and down 5% from the previous year. Oh my God, that sounds really bad. I don't guess we'll have deer corn for sale at Tractor Supply anytime soon. But we'll see. Maybe I'll take you along, and we'll see. It's also in our bird seed. The blend I use, the Eastern blend for the Cardinals and the Jays, has cracked corn in it as well. So, this is where it was all started. And what you got to understand, folks, is it's all about the Benjamins and the Washington, that folding money. But this was the revelation that led to many people, the bobbleheads, talking heads, the ones that used to show us what they do. If SHTF actually happened to come around, yeah, now they're all newscasters. And everybody wants to think that they got the truth when mainstream media don't. Mainstream media bad unless we read it here on YouTube. So, 8%. That seems like a lot. Let's check it out and see how it ranks in years past. So here we are again at the USDA. Yeah, that little known entity in our federal government, the United States Department of Agriculture. National Agricultural Statistics Service. Yeah, they call it NASS. And you can see right here, corn production in the United States. And as y'all heard, and now, are estimated, and that's what I'm going to say, estimated, because, hey, the only corn in the bin is in the lower south central to southern states. And when I say that, right now, it's basically in the bin from about Montgomery, Alabama, and draw a line across to the Gulf Coast and Florida below. Yeah, it's still yet to be cut, combined, and put in the bin from above that area. But like you see here, they estimated at 13.9 billion, baby. That's billion bushels. And you can see here what's all the hubbub and shouting about. Last year, because that's what they say, and I've read multiple articles on mainstream media, they say the same thing, 8% below last year. Oh man, we're all going to starve and die. Our animals are going to dry up and pass away. Because last year is 15.1. But you'll see, in 2020, it was 14.1. And here we are, back at 2019, where the corn harvest was at 13.6. Actually lower than what they're projecting it to be in 2022. But I want to ask you right now. But what I want to ask you, back in 2019, and this will strain your memory as it has strained mine, were we facing a feed shortage? Did our animals starve? Were we fighting inflation and high feed prices at our local feed store? I would think, as I knew, it just didn't happen. How about you? But you can see here, we've had years of 14.3, 14.6. Back in 2015, we had another 13.6. And in 2013, 13.8. And did you hear all the noise and all the fear and all the panic and everybody clamoring to go to the store in those years? Maybe I'm just getting old, and maybe my mind's a little bit soft, and I just didn't realize it. Were we all out of Fritos and other corn products too? Like those tortillas that we make tacos too. I say not, but maybe I remember wrong. In the comments in the video, maybe you can tell me what you remember from those years too. It'll be interesting to share with all of us. So yeah, it's at 13.9 billion bushels. But what about that yield? They were talking about that yield that was going to be so low. compared to last year, you know. So here we are at the USDA site again. And what we're looking at here is not how much we made per year, but the bushels per acre. It's the corn yield in the United States. And you'll see here, projected and forecasted is 172.5 bushels. Oh my God, that's tragic, you know, because last year it was a 177. But hey, in 2020 it was 171.4. Isn't that lower than 172.5? I dare to say. But did we run out of feed for our cattle, our cows, our pigs, our chickens, our goats, and what have you? I would say, I think not. And even worse was 2019 at 167.5. Yeah, and if you look at the average, from 171 to 168 to 174.6, 176 point something, I can't tell, and 176.4, we're not too far away from the average, you know. So what's it all about? Why such the panic and fear to get you to go out and buy and stock it up to your ears? Well, you might know. And that's what we're going to talk about, because based on the facts and the sites that I'll share in the description below, just in case you want to review everything and know for yourself the reality of corn. We've already learned 45% is to ethanol, fuel for our cars. Then about another 45% is used for animal feed, with the remainder 10% used for all those things we consume: high fructose corn sugar, sucrose, starch, and what have you. But does it look like we'll be starving to you? Here again, let me know in the comments below the video. But once again, we go back to the USDA. Yeah. And you can see here, World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates. Yeah, because the year is far from over. And you can read about wheat, and you can get down here to coarse grains. This month's 2022 to 2023 U.S. corn crop outlook is for lower supplies, smaller feed and residual use, reduced exports, and corn used for ethanol, and tighter ending stocks. Understand the ending stocks. You see, what is an ending stock? Because I explained this before. Our ending stocks are when all known uses, all of them, ethanol, feed, corn, all of it, is all said and done. What do we have at the end of the harvest in the beginning of the new harvest year? See, we're still going to have ending stocks. Projecting beginning stocks for 2022 and 2023 are 5 million bushels lower, based on essentially offsetting export and corn used for ethanol changes for 2021 and 2022. Corn production for 2022 to 2023 is forecast at 13.9 billion bushels, down 415 million bushels from the last month on reductions to harvested area and yield. Yeah, that's what caused the spike, not only in price per bushel, but the panic parade. Yes, we do. The national average yield is forecast at 172.5 bushels per acre, down 2.9 bushels. It don't seem like a lot. Harvested area for grain is forecast at 80.8 million acres, down 1 million. Now that seems like a great amount. Total U.S. corn use is cut 250 million bushels to 14.3. Well, we only made 13.9, and we're going to use 14.3. Now, doesn't that mean shortage? Well, that gets back to the ending stock, you see. See, we never totally run out, or we haven't in modern memory and modern times. Feed and residual use is lowered to 100 million bushels based on smaller crop and higher expected prices. Exports are cut 100 million bushels to 2.3 billion. You see, we're still expecting to export corn. And you'll hear about that probably as the year progresses. You know, as our ending stocks get lower and the fear of running out drives prices even higher, and the traders all make out. Yeah, and corn used for ethanol is lowered to 50 million to 5.3 billion bushels. With supply falling more than use, ending stocks are down 169 million bushels to 1.2 billion. Okay, see, that's the bottom line. When it's all said and done, we've made the ethanol, we made the high fructose corn syrup, we made the corn oil, and what all have you, and the animal feed. At the end of the day, when the combines start to running, we'll still have 1.2 billion bushels on hand. The season average corn price received by producers is raised 10 cents to $6.75 per bushel. And that leads us in to what we want to look at next. So here we are at one of my favorite sites. In fact, this is where you could actually go and see if the panic's begun and if it might be real. You see, as actual supply dwindles and vanishes away, prices will skyrocket each and every day. Yeah, I know it rhymes, but it's just a fact of life. Supply, demand. It's the way it goes. So here we say, Chicago corn futures were above 6.8 per bushel, holding its rising trend since hitting an 8-month low of $5.6 in July, and diverging from its correlation with oil as concerns of low supply outweighed the outlook of low demand. Poor weather in major growing regions of the Americas hampered expectations of the ongoing harvest. Yeah, boy, it's going to be bad. So I got a wheat future. I got some corn futures. You need them. I got them for sale. Hey, sounds like the greed train is grunging along. World production and ending stocks were also revised lower regarding the current marketing year. Summer droughts in the U.S. wreaked havoc on domestic corn crops. And they say this crap, but I just showed you it's not the case. See how it goes? Yeah, down to levels not seen since the drought of 2012. Do you remember that drought? No, I'm thinking not, nor did I. On top of that, La Nina effects in South America further hurt the harvests, health, and placing further pressure on supply. Now, hey, if you got something for sale and you want to drive the cost up, what's the best thing you can do? You can tell everyone that it's about to run out, and you need it too. And that, in a nutshell, is how it all goes down. And once upon a time, our government would shut it down. Yeah, but not so much no more, because they're in the market as well. Once upon a time, I was in that market, making big bucks, I'll tell. Yeah, I've traded commodities, and I know how all it works. You see, if you can get in when prices are low and sell when prices are high based on conditions and availability, you can make a fortune almost overnight. And that, my friends and family, is what this is more about. Even so much with social media. You see, I come on here and I tell you the facts. and I show them to you. The fact that there's plenty to go around. But that doesn't drive headlines. It doesn't get you clicking. Get your finger and thumb to moving, as the view count of my videos will show. You see, people really don't want to see rainbows and unicorns, in case they're actually possible to be. You see, we're not going to starve this year, and there's no panic to buy. But that's up to you. I always say, you should be prepared for what's obvious that you know. You know, like tornadoes, hurricanes, job loss, accidents, and such. So hey, this is the real deal about corn. And I'll tell you another fact that you might not know. Since I've been watching this so many things in my life, so I can make the appropriate decisions and let my family, my children, my grandchildren, and my friends know, yeah, when it's time to hunker down and buy what you can. Yep, the USDA now, for quite some time, tries their best to underestimate our crop harvest, and you might wonder why. Well, see, back in the day, when they were over prolific and over joyful of the harvest to come, yeah, there was a time when they overstated and they sort of boosted it up to keep prices low, morale high. You know, consumers, all of us, you know. But that didn't always happen. And they caught a lot of crap. So now they tend to estimate below what they truly believe will be the case. Wouldn't you do the same? I think you would. So hey y'all, that's the state of corn in the U.S. today. I will be able to see it unfold here on YouTube. There are literally hundreds of tens of thousands of channels that can show you just what the corn harvest will be. One to mine that I follow is Cole the Corn Star. Yeah, Larson Farms, Laura Farms. There's so many, just type it in and you'll see them all. And they'll tell you the real deal, but the occasional clickbait too. So hey, until I see you, you know, me, the kitty crew, Spooky, Speedy, Cleo, Mr. Gray, Magoo, Heathcliff, a little bit, and Gracie too. Yeah, on the next video. Y'all take care. Stay safe out there. And may God bless you as you bless others in your life. And prepare as you will and as you must for what comes in the future on all of us. Good night and goodbye for now. Later all.